From garage sales to thrift store aisles, we hunt for treasure, stacking them in piles. Hustling hard, making deals all day, flipping finds, turning profit our way. Your Hustle Podcast guides our quest, learning tricks to be the best. On eBay we make our name, reselling dreams, winning the game. Your Hustle Podcast guides our quest, learning tricks to be the best. On eBay we make our name, reselling dreams, winning the game.
Welcome to Pure Hustle Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're here for back to our Monday live mini-sode.
That's right, Monday lives. And I was just saying, Orlando, before we went live, you're going to get us in trouble with this one because today we're talking about some controversial. We talk about like controversial things in the past, but a lot of times I feel like it's just, you know, our take on things. It's not necessarily the most controversial, but some people have argued with us in the past pretty heavily about some of these. So this will be an interesting one. But I know you want to say hi to everybody in the chat. I want to throw this one up here. We got Diamond Roy here saying, Mike, were you a rapper in a past life? You have a nice flow. Thank you. I appreciate that. For those of you who didn't listen to the Q4 reselling rap from 2019, man, that was forever ago that we did that rap. I was never like an official rapper, but my brother was really, really good. And so I'd help my brother out. Like he'd make beats. And so like I learned the flow of rapping from him. And I've actually done some stuff for different schools that I've been in. We did something at the school Orlando and I both taught at. I've done some rap videos for my kids and they always think it's super cringe, but they can't deny that I've got the flow.
Notice nobody ever compliments me. Just saying.
Well, but you remember when we recorded that, how much I had to help you?
I'm more of a producer. Okay, I'm a producer. All right, that's where we're gonna go. I'm the Dr. Dre of reselling. All right, no offense to you, Big Dre back over here. Hey, shout out to everyone in the chat here. Shanna, all the way from Canada. What's going on? Diamond Roy, how are you? Patrick, Kehoe, what's going on? And Big Dre, thanks for joining us. Hope you're all having a great time of sales. And so the reason this came up, so it was like I got up super early today. It was like 5 a.m, and I caught Commonwealth Flipper, who's also Commonwealth Picker, and he had an episode where he was talking about how like people were just like destroying him in the comments for like some of the things he did at a garage sale, like he was trying to negotiate a deal, or he picked up some items and they ended up having more items. And I was like, wow, I had very strong opinions about this because I'm watching this and I'm like, man, I always love it when keyboard warriors like feel the need to just be mean, right? And we get those sometimes, but I just thought this would be good because I don't know, maybe we're inviting those people to show up here, but I think it's good to talk about these reselling scenarios just so people kind of can think about what they would do if they ever get caught up in this kind of scenario at a garage sale or a thrift store or a local deal and so on. So real quick, I want to shout out Big Dre here. It said he sold $400 total yesterday, and today books, shoes, perfume, shirts, jacket, plush, and camcorder. Big Dre, you are an everything seller, and that $400 is a good day. All right, so what do you do, Mike, if an item is way underpriced, let's say at a thrift store or garage sale? Do you tell somebody? Like, let's say they're selling it for $5 and it's actually a $500 item. What are you doing here? Or $5,000.
Okay, so this really depends on the situation. I mean, I hate to be the guy because I hate qualifications on things, but I feel like this is one of those areas where you do kind of have to throw some qualifications on there. If I'm at a thrift store and they price something, I'm picking it up if they underpriced it for sure. I mean, that's how we make money. That's how, we spot the weaknesses, and we end up, profiting off of that. That's just the way it is. But I think the thing is, everybody wants to jump to the extremes, right? They're like, so you're saying you would find a 90-year-old grandma who's got dementia who's selling her son's 1963 Mustang for $200 because she doesn't know how much it's worth, and you would take that. It's like, no, that is the extreme, and I would never promote or be on the side of anybody who's swindling old people. I think there's a special place in the afterlife for people like that who are taking advantage of older people in that way. But again, I think what most of us are looking at is like, if you go to a garage sale and somebody's got, a pair of shoes, they've got an old electronic device and they're selling it for $20, but hey, I could sell this for $200. I'm going to put in the work. I've done all the research on this. I have the knowledge. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with making a deal like that. Now, again, if somebody is like, if they're clearly not capable of understanding what they have and what they're selling, and it's pure manipulation, I think that's another story. But you've said multiple times in the podcast, I think you're right, is we all have access to the same information, right? Like if somebody wanted to look things up on eBay and see what things are worth, I mean, I've probably sold things even on eBay for less than they're worth, because I didn't do the research, I didn't spend the time. And sometimes I'm okay with that. Hey, you know what? I'm just going to lot all these books together. There might be a couple gems in this lot of comic books that I'm selling, but I don't want to spend the time going through 150 comic books to find the one that might be worth $50, because likely there's not one in there. So I'm just going to sell the whole lot for $20, and I'm fine. I'm happy. I'm making my money. And that's how most people are seeing those situations.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I used to get we used to get some crazy comments back in the day, like in 2018, 2019, when we started the podcast. Because I'd always say, like, if people have access to technology, right? If they can get on eBay, there's no excuses. Like they just chose not to look it up, right? They chose not to take the time to learn. And so to me, if it's underpriced and they have the ability, right? They have a cell phone or they have a computer or they have, access to be able to figure out how things are worth, then it's all business. It's all business, right? People choose not to make that call and they choose to sell it for cheap. And you also have to understand, sometimes people are just wanting to offload stuff, and when you shake hands or when you make the transaction and people say thank you, that's them telling you like, hey, I'm okay with this transaction. This is what I wanted to happen. So let us know in the chat on some of these. Anik, thanks for joining us here. Appreciate you always. Let us know in the chat if you disagree with some of these or your thoughts on some of these. Now, this next one is, what if you put stuff in a bundle, right? And you see that, like, let's say there's 20 items in a bundle, and they're going through all the stuff, and then they miss one. Do you say something or do you just let it happen? I'm gonna put these all towards Mike. Do you go like, oh, hold on, you missed that one right there, or I think you skipped something? Do you say something?
Yeah, I think it just depends on the situation. So I would say most of the time it all comes down to framing, right? Like if I put a whole bunch of items together and I say, how much for all of this? And then they kind of look at it and they say, how about $50 for all of that? And I go, oh, what about 40? And they're like, okay, 40 is fine. Then I don't have on my conscience anything that they missed. But if I say, how much for this, how much for this, how much for this, and then I pile everything together and they say, okay, so you got the books and you got the shoes and you got the helmet, that's going to be, how about this price? And they did miss an item. Like if they're itemizing things and they miss it, I'm probably going to say, oh, and I'm getting this as well, right? Because I don't want it to seem like I've snuck something into a bag or I'm hiding something behind. I feel like there's ways of doing that. Like I'm sure there are people who go to garage sales and they like put a bunch of stuff into a bag and then like, how much for this? And they're purposely hiding something that's valuable.
No, I agree
think
with
that's
that.
a different.
Yeah, no, if you're being shady and like you get a backpack and you're putting a bunch of inventory in the backpack at the garage sale and you're acting like you're just buying the backpack, yeah, that's wrong. To me, that's wrong. That's not okay. But I would say if there's ever a scenario where like, I've had it before where I've had a bundle and they're just like going through stuff and they forget stuff. Like, I'm like, I don't know, maybe they just didn't want to deal with it. Right? Like it's not, I mean, if it's right there, like it's right in front of them, to me, I don't feel like it's my place to say something. But Dre here says, I missed the hat that went with the backpack I sold, so I gave a full refund. Yeah, so sometimes you got to do that. But I'm talking about on the other side when you got a source. Like I've had moments where I picked up a bunch of stuff and then like on the side, like they missed the thing on the side, right? So let's say it was a bunch of video games and then like on the side there's like a pair of shoes, right? And they're like, oh, 25 for everything. So I start picking everything up and I pick up the shoes, and they're like, whoa, 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 I didn't put the shoes in the bundle. I'll be like, oh, well, okay, I'm sorry about that. Like, hey, do you want? Can we make a deal on this? I don't act like, oh no, this is everything here in the bundle, right? Like, I think you got to be careful with that. Yeah, and to me, it's like I give enough time. Like, whenever I get a bundle and I'm gonna make money on a bundle, like I don't like rush and like pick everything up and like hopefully nobody sees everything. Like, to me, if you want to go through it, that's fine. But I will say one tip I always give people: don't be specific in the bundle. Don't go like, hey, did you miss that Bose 401, set of speakers over there? Or did you miss that Sega Dreamcast from 1997? Like, just be generic, because what I find is when you're specific, when you're making those deals, what ends up happening is that people begin to go like, oh, why are they specific? Is it there's some value to that certain model number or that group? So just keep an eye out on that one. All right. What about this next one? What if you find more items when you get home? So, for example, okay, this is kind of what happened to Commonwealth Flipper. They bought a camera bag, right? And there's a camera in it, but they got home and they opened the camera bag and they realized there was another camera, there was another lens, and there were other accessories to it. Do you drive back and tell them, or is it just like, hey, they had the opportunity to go through that bag and find it? What are your thoughts on
that? I was thinking just that idea was something in a bag as a good example for this, because I've done that. I've bought bags and then found things in the pockets when I got home, like, oh wow, like this bag actually had this cool thing inside of it, or had some money, or had like a piece of some jewelry or something. I feel like that's fair game, right? Like when you put something out to sell at a garage sale or at a thrift store, like that it's expected that I'm buying, especially if it's like a bag or like a lot of things. Like, here's this box full of video game stuff, and then inside of that video game stuff is also something, if it's obviously in the wrong place, that's different. But in a situation where, hey, here is the bag with the camera, and I'm buying this camera and bag and inside it is another lens, that's just part of what they sold, right? Like, they could have gone through and looked through. I think that's very different than like I said, where if you buying the tote full of Legos, and inside the tote full of Legos, and it's in there something else, I think that's different, right? So you probably,
do you bring attention to that? Like, if there's something in that tote full of Legos, and let's say in that tote full of Legos there's, I don't know, a vintage toy that's not a Lego that's worth like several $100s. Do you bring attention, or do you?
Again, I'm probably going to say like, how much for the box of toys, like, and I'd kind of like dig through it in front of them. I think again, it'd be a case by case. Like, if I'm buying a box full of toys, and on the table next to the toys is a bunch of like watches in cases, right? And they've got all these watches in the watch cases, and inside of the toy boxes, one of the watch cases and watches fell into it. I know that doesn't belong there, right? I might say like, oh, is this supposed to be in here? So I think that's different. That would be something where I couldn't ethically handle it. I wouldn't.
Okay.
It would rub against me wrong. But yeah, if I got home and I bought a camera, and then I realized like, oh cool, this camera had an extra lens, or oh, it came with 3 extra batteries, and these batteries are actually what sell for a bunch of money. Sweet, perfect, right? Like, I'm not going to drive back for that. I think I have driven back to stores before. Like, hey, I realized they rang me up wrong for an item. I need to, go back and pay for this, or walked back in, when I'm checking, putting stuff back in my car, and like, oh, they never rang this up. So I'm really big on doing that. I feel like that's an important thing to do. But again, if somebody's selling something like a bag full of camera stuff, it's just assumed that they know what's in there and what they're selling.
No, I agree. I mean, I've had moments where, I've bought out an estate, right? And then, it's like, I haven't sourced through what I picked up. Like, it's been like 6 months, and I don't even remember like what location it was. And like, I found like gold necklaces, or I found like jewelry in there, and I'm pretty sure they didn't want to, like, they were just giving stuff away. But it's kind of too late. Like, it's been like 6 months. Like, they had my phone number, they could have reached out to me, and I'm kind of like, well, I guess they didn't care about it, right? Because they would have gone through everything. I think about this one estate where they gave me a whole bunch of free stuff, and in it there was a bunch of Vietnam era pins. I've mentioned this before on the podcast, that were worth like 100 a piece, and I ended up picking up like 50 of them. And I was like, I wonder if there's any sentimental value, and I'm like, should I contact them? But then it's like, no, like, it was there. Like they could have gone through it, they could have seen it. So I don't know. I agree. Like every circumstance is different. So you kind of got to sort out. You got to find out too what you're able to sleep with. How about the ones when you find cash and stuff, right? I've had it where I've got. I remember I got a bunch of CDs and I found like $20 one time. One time I found $100. Like, do I go back and do I say, hey, you had cash in there? Like, does it matter how much cash it is? What if it's $1,000? Right now, I would say if it goes into like several thousand, I'm actually going back, or I'm telling the police because like there may be a reason that money's in there, and you don't want to be part of that reason, right?
Yeah. Again, like that's the difference from like, hey, I bought this jacket at a thrift store, and when I got home, there was money on the inside pocket, versus I'm at a garage sale and this person left a wedding ring accidentally in a jacket pocket. Like that's a big difference, and I feel like those things need to be treated differently for sure.
So, hey, real quick, just want to say hi to people that have caught us here. Kathleen, the Fenway Flipper, what's going on? What's going on? Rhythm J, Collins on the move. Thanks for joining us and appreciate the comments. So, if you ever want to chime in here on one of these, all right, what if this? What if you get home and something? We already kind of did the way overpriced. Overpriced. Okay.
Yeah, we kind of already covered that. But I would look at this as a bonus, right? If I bought, I'm thinking of like one time I bought some manga at a garage sale, and I looked at a couple. I'm like, I think I could sell these for like $20 a pop. Sweet, I'm gonna buy this whole box. And then I get home and I find one of them in there that's like a $200 and some manga.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bonus. Like, sweet, perfect.
Well, that's what happened to me last year. Remember last year I bought like all this manga and I paid $120 for all the manga, and then I ended up making $3,000 on it. Right? They could have looked it up, right? They could have sorted it out, but they kind of were just like, I just want to sell it. I want to get rid of it. Right? Same with those Game Boy Advance boxes. So yeah, what about okay, what about if they ask for it back? Like you already bought it, it's in your car, or what if you're even home and they call you?
Well,
what do you do?
I guess they could call if you leave a card, which we talk about doing. Man, that's a tough one. Again, I think I'm going to take this situation by situation, right? Because like we talk almost jokingly, but it has happened where it's like a wife is there and she's selling stuff and she's like, I don't know, my husband's inside and I don't know how much he wants for this. How about just $20, right? And you're like, sweet, cool, that's a good deal.
All right, chat, let us know. I want to know what they say. What if they ask for it back? What would you say? Let us know. All right, keep going.
It really depends though, right? I think in most situations, like, look, I don't want to say I'm a people pleaser, but if there's going to be confrontation, it's going to be serious confrontation. So I'm not going to let it get to that level most of the time. And so if somebody's like, hey, oh my gosh, like, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize that my kids, whatever, thing was in there. Like that's honestly, that has a lot of sentimental value to him. I can't let go of that. Like if I had a bundle deal or something, unless it's like, I'm going to be able to retire off of this deal, like I'm probably going to just give it back. You know what I mean? Like that might just be me personally.
Let me run a scenario. You buy 2 totefuls of video games, right? And you go home and you go through it and you realize there's a sealed Zelda that's worth like $100,000.
Yeah.
Okay. And they call you and they're like, oh man, I didn't mean to, but I sold this new sealed Zelda game in there that I had since my childhood.
So honestly, if it was $100,000 Zelda game, and they called, and I'm just being honest, if they called on that, because I left a card and they said, hey, are you the guy that, buys the video games? And I'd be like, yeah. And then they say, yeah, I want that one back. I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry. I think you have the wrong number. And I'd hang up. Right. Like because I would answer thinking maybe they have more, but I'm sorry. At that point, like I bought that, like you're not getting that one back.
I wonder at that point if you have to lawyer up.
No,
right? No, it's $100K. It's $100K. Like
it doesn't matter. You made a deal. You made a deal. It is what it is.
I don't know, man. I'm like, I haven't had that. I mean, I've had people like, hey, there was something sentimental, like it was like a brooch or something. And
okay, but let's put it this way then. Let's put it this way. Yeah. So if it's a sentimental thing in that sense, but like it's really would just be the money, right? They know, like, imagine you sold something, you posted on Instagram. Hey, I bought this game at a garage sale for $5 and I sold it for 20 grand, right? And you post it on Instagram. Next thing you know, those people reach out to you and they're like, hey, I didn't realize it was worth that much. I think you should give me the 20 grand. Would you give it to them?
Nope.
No, right? Like you wouldn't give it to them, the money to them, right? Because transactions have already happened. It's done. It was a fair trade. Yeah, no, because a lot of people are going to want it back because they didn't realize what it was worth in that sense. So yeah, I think without coming across, because I've tried to come across this whole episode is like I'm genuinely a caring guy, and I try not to take.
We both are.
I don't take advantage of people, but if you get one of those holy grail sales, right? Like I mean, everybody dreams of finding that like rare art piece at a thrift store and making a ton of money. And it's like, well, if the thrift store is like, oh, we didn't know it was that much and we kind of want it back. And it's like, no, sorry. Like I finally found my item that I can sell for $100 grand or $1 million or whatever. And I've made it. Like you're not taking that from me. I'm sorry.
No, I hear you. I mean, I think about, that one garage sale I went to a few years back where there was all these like vintage t-shirts, like Trailblazers and all these NBA t-shirts. And there was like a Nintendo World Champ shirt and all this stuff. And it was all free. And I was like, how much? And I'm like, it says free. Are you sure it's free? And she's like, yeah, just take it. Well, I made like hundreds of dollars off those shirts, right? But I always wondered if like I ever got a call back like, hey, that's my boyfriend. There's a lot of sentimental value to that shirt. Like, would you mind selling it back? Like, I don't think I would. It's already been done, right? The transactions exchange hands and it's over. I don't know, but there was a time I was scared to post on social media whenever I had a big score, because I'm like, what if they follow me on social media? Like, what do I do, right? Like, what happens? So I don't know. I like what Dre says. That would be weird, unprofessional to ask for it back. I've never had that happen. I don't think I would go back to so much trouble. Yeah, but you know what? It will happen. I mean, it's only been a handful. I would say maybe 10 times in my entire time recently where I've had people like, maybe I was going out to my car and like, whoa, like there's something in there I didn't want to sell. And it hasn't been a big deal. I've had people snatch things out of my hands before, like a Flowbee. I've shared that story before. It was like their father's Flowbee and they didn't want to sell it and I didn't know. And I already paid for it. And I was like, that's fine. It was just $5. But yeah, I agree. Collins on the Move says it depends on the situation. I think it does. But I would say overall, like it's just business, right? Like if they had the ability to research, you had the ability, whether it's $5 or $5,000, it's business. The transaction's been made. It's kind of the way it goes. It's business. So, hey everyone, thank you for joining us. That didn't seem too bad, Mike. You were kind of concerned. I think.
No, yeah. I mean, honestly, I was a little worried how we'd come across on this one.
Were you worried about me?
I was worried that, yeah, a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little worried you were gonna come in a little bit more less nuanced. Let's just say that.
Less nuanced. No. I do have a soul. I do have a heart. So,
because there's times when an item is already underpriced and you're like, $5 for this? How about $3? And you already know you're gonna make like 500.
It's like Michael Corleone always said, it's just business. Okay. So, anyways, hope everyone's doing well. Thank you for tuning into live. Appreciate every single one of you. And with that being said, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling late.
Peace.